In this video, we will show you how to replace your front strut on this 2009 Dodge Dakota. This will be located in the front of your vehicle, directly behind your front wheel. Let's get into it. The first thing you need to do is safely raise and support the front of the vehicle so your wheel's off the ground. Once you've done that, continue on to removing all 5 of your 22mm lug nuts and then the wheel. If you have a dust cover, remove that as well. Now that we have the wheel out of the way, let's go ahead and follow our ABS wire coming up the control arm and then all the way up to the wheel well. You can see that you have the tip of the push clip coming through. Use a trim tool and come from the back side of the wheel well here and pry up against the ABS wire. We're going to try to pull this right out of here. Once you have that down, you can bring it down to an area that you can service this. Looking at this area, you can tell that there's a little tab that we can squeeze in and then gently pull this apart. Once we do, we'll give it a quick check for corrosion. This one looks fine. Let's follow the wire down to the upper control arm. To remove this from its locking clip, we'll use a small pocket screwdriver. Come right in between this clip and gently pry this to separate it. Once you have that up, continue on to removing the ABS wire from the clip itself. We'll give that a quick inspection. Now we'll bring this down over to this side. Next, we're going to move along to removing the caliper from this area. But when we do, it's important to make sure that you have something holding the rotor in place. I'll continue on with a spacer and one of my lug nuts to hold the rotor to the wheel bearing. Now we can start removing the caliper. You'll notice for this you have 2 21mm bolts holding it in place. We'll loosen the top one, leave it in there a couple threads, fully remove the lower one. Inspect all of your hardware as you remove it, replace it as necessary. Now we'll start removing the caliper. When you do, it's important to make sure that you hang it on something so it's putting no pressure on the flex hose. Before we hang it, let's just take a quick peek at those pads. Make sure it looks like they're not worn or damaged in any way. If they are, it's a good idea to go ahead and replace them. Now I'll hang this aside so we can continue. Let's make our way right up on top of the strut tower. You're going to find that you have 3 15mm headed nuts holding the strut to this part of the frame. Leave that on there a couple threads. Continue on to the other 2. Let's move down to where the front sway bar link connects onto the lower control arm. Along the bottom, you'll find that you have an 18mm nut. But we're going to have to hold on to this area of the sway bar link with some locking pliers so we can remove the nut. Let's continue inward a little bit, and we're going to locate the area where the front strut connects to the lower control arm. For this, you'll find that you have a 24mm nut along the front, and in the rear, you have an area that you can grab onto with a 21mm wrench. The next thing we'll do is continue by applying a little bit of pressure underneath the lower control arm. Once we've done that, we'll continue on to driving out the mounting bolt. Now let's continue with a bar. We're going to try to pry up against the knuckle and the frame. We should be able to gently pull this up and down as required to fully pull out that mounting bolt. Make sure you give that a close inspection. Make sure it's not rotted or damaged in any way. Go ahead and clean it up and set it aside. Let's continue up here. We'll take hold of that last nut on top of the strut. Use a pry bar in between the top of the strut and the strut tower and gently start pulling the strut down and out of position. There we are. Can pull that down. Now we'll start pulling the strut out of the strut tower. You might have to lift up on the upper control arm. Now we can grab onto this and lift it up and out of here. There it is, friends. While we have that out of there, let's pay attention to the bottom area of the strut tower. It's common to find some rust or rot in this area. You want to make sure you clean off any of that debris. All right, let's get ready for our installation. Have a look at the strut cap. You'll notice that you have 3 studs along the outer aspect of it, and there's one that protrudes out a little further than the other 2. You'll also notice that you have this pointed area on the cap itself. That area needs to face out and away from the vehicle. Let's start putting this in place. I'll use my pry bar to gently pull up on the upper control arm, getting it out of our way so we can slide this into the strut tower. Once you have it up in there, we'll go ahead and start lowering this down, remove our bar. Let's lift that strut up into the proper position and start on all 3 of our top mounting nuts. Now that we have all 3 of the mounting nuts started on there, but they're still left loose, let's continue on down along the bottom. Now down along the bottom, let's continue on to putting the sway bar link into the proper positioning in the lower control arm. Once you have that lined up, you can continue on by safely raising that lower control arm, aligning the sway bar link with its hole and the strut with the lower hole. You might have to raise or lower the lower control arm to align that mounting bolt hole for the lower bolt. Let's get this lined up down here. We might need to either raise or lower that control arm to get the mounting hole lined up properly. Once you're in the proper positioning, continue on with that mounting bolt. We'll slide it right on through from the rear towards the front. Start on your 24mm nut. Now we can continue on by applying more upward pressure underneath the lower control arm, bringing it into the original ride height position. After that, you can continue by tightening the 24mm lower nut and then torquing it to 155 foot-pounds. I'll use my wrench to hold the bolt side. Now we can make our way back up to the top. We'll snug each of these mounting nuts and then torque those to 45 foot-pounds. Continue to the lower sway bar link nut, bottom this out, and torque it to 45 foot-pounds as well. Continue on to the ABS wire. We'll put it into the bracket and lock it into position. Now we can connect this up and behind the fender well. Reach up, grab that wire, line up the locking tab, press it in, listen for a click, give it a tug to make sure it's secure. Now we'll take this tab and put it through from the back side out and through this area. At this point, we can remove the pressure from underneath the lower control arm. Let's move along to the brake caliper. We'll slide it in position over the rotor, align our two mounting bolt holes, and start in each of those 21mm headed bolts. Now we can snug them up and torque them to 130 foot-pounds. Let's remove the lug nut and the spacer from this area. Let's get our wheel on here. Start on all 5 of your 22mm lug nuts, bottom them out. Once you have those snug, get the wheel safely back down on the ground. We'll continue on to torquing each of the lug nuts to 140 foot-pounds. Torqued. Okay friends, we've got the truck back together. At this point, go ahead and hop inside the passenger compartment, pump up the brake pedal till it's nice and firm. Take your vehicle for a road test, make sure you don't have an ABS light and no funny noises. After that, Go ahead and get yourself safely down to your local alignment shop. Thanks for watching.
When only the best will do, demand TRQ. The only company that lets you view before you do. TRQ is committed to offering the highest quality aftermarket auto parts that are engineered for peace of mind. Thanks for using and viewing with TRQ.